Get ready to break molds and blaze trails. Welcome to the Chelsey Holm podcast, your shortcuts to wellness, business, and growth with a twist. Let's flip the script and unlock your full potential together.
It's time to tear up the permission slip and stop asking permission for everything in your life. Let's dive in. Okay, so here's the thing. There are probably several ways in your life that you are asking permission. And what it's doing to you is completely silencing your voice or minimizing it, right? Or it's causing you to question how you're showing up. It's causing you to doubt what you're even doing, if you're doing what you should be in the first place. Like, so many things. Like, it doesn't allow you to fully be you. I was talking to someone in Instagram messages today, and she was like, yeah, I feel like I've just been like torn apart and like made into something new. And I said, based on the inner work I've been doing, I actually don't feel like that. I actually feel like I am still me, but I've removed the wet blanket and I'm no longer silencing my voice, toning myself down, making myself play small so as to make others around me more comfortable. Like, this is me. And I was thinking about a story my mom and my grandma loved to tell about when I was a little girl, that I was probably about 4 years old. And my mom had gone to work, and I decided that I was going to put on my boots and my tutu and go in the middle of winter, determined to march down the road and find my mom. And I love that story because that in and of itself, like, that is the essence of who I am. Like, I am still that determined little girl in her cowgirl boots and tutu who doesn't give a flying what about the temperature and the world around me. Like, I am going, and here we go. Like, you're welcome to come along with me, but don't try to stop me because I'm not even paying attention to you. Like, that's the thing. And I was talking with my coach Dina yesterday, and we were kind of diving more into this, like, because it's not really been like a breakthrough, like a reinvention or anything like that. It's more of just like tapping into and gaining clarity on who it is exactly that I was and am before I started to alter my behaviors and the things that I said for the people around me, right? And so we were diving a little deeper into this, and I realized that, like, I've just been asking permission for so many things. And also my focus was on things that are very temporary, very much like will only be in this world. Once this world passes away, once I die and move on, not taking any of it with me. And so I've always had that like inner conflicting belief of like, I'm working towards these things because coaches in my industry or people in my network marketing business, like, that's what they're working for. And that's what like should be on my goal board, right? Or my dream board. And here's the thing though, when I'm stepping fully into who God made me to be, when I'm taking my rightful place at the table he has set with abundance, looking him in the eye as his daughter, I show up differently, and I show up in a way that is focused on eternal impact, not on temporal impact, not on things that are temporary that are going to pass away, things that are shakable, things that are able to be burned up in fire, things that the moths are going to come and eat and destroy, right? Now, here's the cool thing though. When I'm doing that and taking my rightful seat at that table, I am able to then come from a place of abundance, of overflow, of accepting and receiving the blessings that he already has for me. Like, it's not about me earning them. It's just about me receiving them. And they come easily to me because I am who I am, right? Like, I am who he made me to be. And I'm not apologizing for that. I'm not asking permission for it. Blaming myself, right? Oh my gosh, how often do we feel compelled to explain ourselves, right? If you've had any experience in the network marketing industry, you are constantly explaining yourself to other people, like, why would you do that? Isn't that a pyramid scheme? And blah, 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 and all the things. And it's like, no, because here's the thing. And it's the same with my faith. Like, all of the things that are a part of me like being a military wife and being a believer and, doing things differently, being a stay-at-home mom, but also running multiple businesses, those things are very much not mainstream. And so like there's already a level of like rebellious person, I guess, right? Like going against the flow, not the traditional things that society says are very normal and that the majority are doing. But then when we take that a level deeper of like, no, I'm not working actually to be a 7-figure earner. I'm not working to be a 6-figure giver. I am here and passionate, expressing freely, receiving wholly, because this is my spiritual act of worship to the Lord here in this world, to build a legacy for myself, not to even create generational wealth for my family. It's so far beyond that. It's to the things that won't be shaken, that won't be burned up, that won't be eaten by moths or destroyed. It's about getting into heaven and God looking me in the eye and saying, well done, good and faithful servant. You did everything that I asked of you. You used the gifts to my glory. You used the gifts that I gave you and received them well. And you were a channel that resources could flow through, right? Like, and look around, like in that moment, like I just picture, like, look around, look at all of the lives that you impacted because you refused to ask permission. You went against the grain. You stepped outside of the box of what someone in your field in the way that I've called you typically shows up as, right? Now, at the end of my life, will I have had the income and had the time freedom and created the generational wealth and broken generational curses and lived bigger and more abundantly and all of those things? Like, yeah, because those things come easily to me because of who I am, because I am ready and open to receiving from the abundance and then being that channel that it can flow through to others and make a massive impact bigger than this world, bigger than this temporary time that we have here, bigger than just legacy, like eternal impact. Like that's what it's all about, right? It's about impacting people's lives. And you can't, and I repeat, if you have like self-identified as an achiever, as, someone who's a hard worker, who's ambitious, who is all of these things, right? Like, then this is for you and you need to lean in on this one, okay? You cannot do it all on your own for your glory and for your results. Oh my gosh, I am so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're listening to this podcast. As you know, I believe that if you're not growing, you're dying. So you are in the right place to continue developing your growth mindset. If you have a business and you're an entrepreneur in any capacity, but especially in the social selling world, online and social media, but you're feeling stuck, you've created some level of success, but you can't seem to get past it. You're frustrated, you're feeling burnt out, you're starting to question yourself, you don't feel like you're fully stepping into who you are and how you want to build your business, then go check out my signature course, the Speed and Stability Playbook, and you're going to get timeless principles that are going to be funneled through your strengths so that you can show up and build your business exactly like you want and not how someone is telling you to, so that you can work on the mindset of becoming the person that already has the things that you're looking to create and being able to do that and generate that through any strategy that aligns with you. Go check that out now in the show notes. Now let's get back to the episode. You just can't, because what it does is it puts you into a state of, or a speed that's so high that you forget everything that you truly know deep in your core, and you become the expense that's being paid. And you take everything on your shoulders and on to like into your hands, like this self-reliance of like, I have to create, I have to do, I have, like, it's all about doing. And it has nothing to do with who God made you to be and how he's called you and how he wants you to be a channel. Right now, does that mean you have to put legs on that prayer? Absolutely. Like, we actually have to do things. Like, does it mean I'm just sitting over here, like humming and saying things all come to me easily? No, like, I'm still doing things, right? But I just have such a challenged, and like, it's like almost like all the poo has like fallen away, and I can actually see like so clearly now that I'm I was so way off base. Like, and I feel like over the years, like, I've had like bits and pieces of this all along, but I still, it's like I knew the things in my head, and maybe you can relate to this, but like, all the things in your head, right? But actually like embodying them at the core of you is not happening. Like, it is not even blocked, but just like you have suppressed your voice and your emotions for so many years that there is a huge chasm of a disconnect between what your head knows and what your body actually feels and is able to express. And this is where I was living for the longest time. And it kind of reminds me of like that Kelly Clarkson song of like Break Away. Grew up in a small town where the rain would fall down. I'd just stare out my window, dreaming of what could be if I'd end up happy. So I would pray that I would break away, right? I feel like that's an internal dialogue that's been going on. And because I took the opinions of others and put them on myself while saying, knowing in my head, I don't care what people think, but totally living it out and acting it out in a way that very much cared what other people thought, because I was so concerned with it. Like, so you could think of it this way, that like, okay, think of like a moment when you are like totally like completely in the moment of having fun or in worship, like you like that your favorite worship song comes on, or your song you guys are singing at church, like it just takes you over, and it's almost like everybody else and all the other voices fade away, and it's just you and the Lord, and nobody else matters. You're not even thinking about them. You are just so fully present and in that moment of deep connection with your Lord and Savior, and just singing your little heart out, and you don't even know what you sound like, and you don't care what you look like. Like, you're not even thinking about that. Like, you're just in that moment. That is what it's like to live in this state that God created and intended for you. If you think about Adam in the Garden of Eden before sin entered the world, right? He was given a job to name all of the animals, right? And to tend to the garden. And he did that. And there, like, we don't see like any of this like questioning himself or what, like, he just did it, right? And then sin entered, and then all of a sudden we have doubt, and we have confusion and questioning and broken relationship and all of these things, right? And so when you think about who God made you to be, and really speaking in the voice that he gave you, and stepping fully into the purpose that he's called you to, right? By expressing freely the truth that he has given you, that we have, that's what it's like. It's like pre-sin Garden of Eden, right? It's living in that fullness. It's living in that moment. It's not being consumed by who's watching me. What if someone sees me? What are they going to think? Like, oh, if I raise my hand, and like, this is a personal struggle I've been having. I don't know what having means, but having is, I grew up more or less in the Baptist church, and it can be very like legalistic and rules. And I remember I was on the worship team, and in youth group, we would have like a drum set and guitars and singers, all that. And like we were bringing like our youth group worship team onto stage to like lead worship. And apparently, and like I didn't really know all the ins and outs, and I probably still don't to this day, but all I knew was there was an overwhelming sense of like disgust that we would have a drum set on stage in God's house. And it was like this unspoken feeling of, oof, like we can't do that. Like, like that's too much, right? And I still remember that like so clear as day today. Gosh, like just like it was yesterday. And that's how we start to show up in life, is like this toned down version of ourselves, because we have let the opinions of others come in. And so anyway, so like raising our hands during worship, even clapping like amens and hallelujah, like none of that was a part of it. And I remember my friend in middle school and high school, she went to a Pentecostal church, and I went to her church a few times, and it was crazy there, chaos, like people were running around and screaming, and I was just like taken back, like kind of, it made me really uncomfortable, because I was like, gosh, we came from nothing. And then like having experience with the way my husband was raised, like Lutheran, like again, like very traditional. And I remember we were at an Easter service one time, and like we're talking about the death and resurrection of our Lord, and cricket, like there was not even any clapping, like no amens, like nothing. And I'm just like, what for loving heck, like this is not how we sell it, right? Okay, so I know everyone has preferences. I'm not getting into like the preferences of worship and how we lead our services for church, right? Like that's a whole other story, whatever. Like, but all of these things have impacted me in bringing in this layer of caring what people think around me, like what environment am I in, and how is it acceptable to worship the Lord here, when inside I'm feeling like I just want to freaking dance and throw my hands in the air and like just don't care, and I'm praising the Lord. And if you're watching the YouTube version of this, you get to see me flailing all around, but just picture chaos. Not really chaos, like just someone who is totally like in the moment, right, and doesn't care about it, like is not even acknowledging anybody else around them, right, in the sense of like not in like the rude, like I'm not going to explain myself on that one, it doesn't matter. Okay, but I have been struggling with this, because like there are moments during worship where like I'm listening to myself sing, and it's like, why? That's dumb. And then there are moments where it's like I want to raise my hands, but I feel like all eyes are on me. Again, that's so dumb. Like that's coming from like stifled version of myself that is concerned about everyone around me. Where if I were actually in that moment, completely sold out to it and present, the thought of how it would be perceived by others wouldn't even enter the conversation, because there wouldn't even be a conversation, right? And so when you think about how are you asking permission in your life to speak in the voice that God has given you, to show up in the way that He's created you, and to serve others in the way that He's called you, what is that looking like right now? Where and how are you asking permission? Is it showing up in the way that you go to make a reel, or you go to make a post, or you go live in your stories, or you go to invite a new friend that you just met to connect on social media, or you go to invite that neighbor over for dinner because they've really been on your heart, or you go to whatever, like you get, like there's so many different ways and so many different facets that this could show up in your life. And you stop and you second guess yourself, and you say, oh, I don't know, maybe it's not the right time, maybe I should do that later, like I don't know, maybe I don't know, right? Or asking for permission can look like forcing yourself into a space that you were never intended to occupy. It could be quickly saying yes to something because you are afraid of what will happen when you say no. It can be silencing your voice instead of speaking up because you're afraid of how someone's going to perceive you. And so then you just keep quiet it can show up in how you disconnect from your spouse because you are so consumed with being validated through what you do that you are moving so fast you can't even slow down for your husband for 2 seconds who's asking for a hug or a kiss, right? Because you got to finish your task. Because if you don't finish your task, you must be a failure, right? Like, what is this? What are these lies that we have so deeply believed? I've been listening to this. He's on Right Now Media by Louis Giglio. He's a pastor. It's called "Don't Let the Enemy Have a Seat at Your Table." I think it's something like that. And it's been so good. I think I'm on I think I've listened to 2 sessions so far. And if you think of it as, you're at a table, the Lord has prepared this table for you. It's a feast, and you have a rightful seat that He is beckoning you to claim, and we are showing up like we can't, like we don't deserve to be there. We're not worthy to take that seat. We're not enough. We're not good enough. Or we're so busy that we're like, I'll just take something to go. Like, nice to see you. But we're not actually sitting down and consuming what He has presented to us and created for us. We're not engaging in that deeper communication and relationship that He created us for, to have with Him, right? And when we let the enemy have a seat at the table and take our seat while we stand off somewhere like completely silenced and whatever, like a quieter version of ourselves or a toned down version of ourselves, like, here's the thing. Satan doesn't have to destroy you. He just has to whisper some lies to you, and you are like, yeah, I agree with you, and you make agreements with him. And it's totally crazy when you say it out loud. Or you you start to question yourself. I mean, that was what he did in the beginning in the garden. He led Eve to question, did God really say? Right? It's like this idea of questioning and doubting and asking permission and believing the lies, especially like when we're building a business, right? Like, we're working towards goals, right? We are looking at the results we're getting and we're not getting, but when you actually dig deeper, what are we looking for? We're looking for validation. We're looking for fulfillment. We're looking for love and acceptance. But our business, our marriage, our relationship with our kids, our friendships, none of that is going to give us true fulfillment, is going to completely validate us, is going to make us feel worthy. Okay, we know in our heads that we're worthy, but do we know in our bodies that we are? Do we choose to believe the truth that God has spoken over us, that He died for us, that just one sheep goes astray and He will leave the 99 to go find it? Like, do you truly believe that? Are you working for earthly temporal things that are going to pass away? Or are you showing up fully as yourself, silencing the enemy, taking your rightful seat at the table because you're working for something bigger and deeper and eternally lasting, eternal impact, right? And you might ask yourself, well, what if it, I don't know, am I actually sharing Jesus with others? Am I leading other people to faith? Well, let me ask you this. When you show up in this toned down, dampened version of yourself because you're so concerned about what other people think and you've allowed the enemy to silence you, what testimony is that for the wonder working power of the gospel and freedom versus silencing the enemy, showing up as God called you to, free, completely free, receiving His abundance and overflowing on others? What kind of testimony does that give to the world? Now, are you out on the corner preaching the gospel to all the nations? Probably not. But I think that that's a lie that the world has hooked us with, What is it? I'm not great at fishing stuff. I probably shouldn't use fishing analogies because I don't really hook, line, and sinker, right? We took that bait. We took that bait of the enemy that we are only holy if we're missionaries or pastors or We're preaching the gospel on the corner. But do you know how powerful of a message and testimony of the wonder-working power and freedom of the gospel is when we show up fully in our business? When we show up fully, not just in our business, in all areas of our life, because we are whole, none of those things fill us. And we're doing them because we are working towards eternal impact. Think of the parable of the rich young ruler. It wasn't that he was sad about his possessions. He was sad that in his possessions, he couldn't find fulfillment. And honestly, his fulfillment was going to come only in Jesus when he was able to let go of all of the earthly things that are going to pass away anyways that we don't get to take with us, right? Like, that's the freedom. That's what I mean when I say I am no longer asking permission. I refuse to ask permission because God has already given me the green light. He has given me the green light to change people's lives, to allow myself to be the channel, the vessel, the cup that's overflowing onto other people today, tomorrow, and for eternity. So I challenge you, look at your life. Where are you asking permission? And if it feels good for you and right for you, then jump into my one-on-one 30-day Voxer intensive, where we're going to do the deep coaching that you need, the inner work, where we're not going to reinvent you, right? We're going to take the bushel off over your head that the enemy has so successfully placed on you, and you have welcomed it and allowed it and said, you're right, I'm worthless. I better be quiet. I don't know enough. How could anyone learn from me? How could God really use me? I'm nothing. I'm nobody. Excuse me, ma'am. Jesus died for you willingly. He laid down his life, and you're going to stand there and tell me you're nothing and you're worthless? But we do it, don't we? We know in our head that we're not worthless, but we embody that we are, and we show up that way, and we ask permission when we've already been given the green light in all of these areas. So if it feels good for you, and it's a heck yes for you, dive into the one-on-one 30-day Voxer intensive with me. I have seats open now. We're kicking off November 1st, and I am so excited. And here's the thing. Even if that's not a good fit for you, doing the inner work is a good fit for you. And it's one of those things, I think a lot of decisions that I made out of a need that I felt I was missing something or lacking something in myself. And when I signed up with the coach that I'm working with right now, it was a big chunk of money. And I think it was the first decision I made that I didn't make it from a position of lacking anything. I made it from a position of, I am worth this. Like, I am worth finding my voice again and stepping fully into who God made me to be, and shaking myself free of all of the lies from the enemy and all the footholds that I've given him and all of the misdirections of things that I've been chasing after in this world that are so temporary and that really don't mean anything, like in the long run, right? And I want that for you. Like, the inner work needs to be done for anything outer to really be meaningful and lasting for eternity, right? That's what we're after here. All right. Take care, guys. We'll talk soon.
Thanks for joining the Chelsey Holm podcast journey. If you've enjoyed challenging the norm and embracing growth with a twist, share the love. Don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, keep defying expectations and keep leaning into who God made you to be.